computer. Okay. Are we recording? Let's see. Yes, we are. Welcome to Art 116. I'm James, your genial host. We're going to talk about stuff. I am out of the frame right now because I'm over here at my table where my workspace is. And so I'm going to change cameras to my bird's eye view of my workspace, and we're going to be right here working on this stuff today. So we presented the concept last time. For anybody who didn't see the thing last time, I did want to talk about it one more time. Ooh, this one is a student's work from a couple of years ago, and it needs a little help. I might have to fix this one. This one's better. We can talk about this one. We were going to do a guided painting project this week and next, dealing with Paul Cezanne's Still Life with Apples. I'd like you guys to select a tetrad, a 4-color scheme off of your color wheel, kind of based on the 4 corners of a square, or based on a double split complement. So you have to choose your tetrad colors and write them down first, and then commit to them. Tetrad usually has 2 high key colors, 2 deep key colors, 2 warm colors, and 2 cool colors. So you've got kind of a nice balance between all those 4 colors, where you can cover the waterfront color-wise. And so I just started demonstrating on this one. And what I was doing in class this morning is something as crazy as my tetrad is really strange. It's red-orange. So I've made myself up a little bit of a red-orange so I can do this. And so in the classroom, we are using the wrong end of the paintbrush to start to fill in with dots all the areas of the painting. I'd like you to be able to cover the entire painting with dots if possible. And I'd like those dots to somehow be separated from other things so that I can see all the individual dots and not have just big solid color shapes in the composition, because we're trying to do this pointillist painting in the manner of Seurat. Georges Seurat, another post-impressionist painter. And so we're going to be doing this. And this morning we were engaging in a lot of Morse code, a lot of working our telegraph keys, because everybody was kind of banging their paintbrushes on the wrong end on the tabletops. And it was a lot of fun. And we just kind of did all that. So you can kind of see that we start off with a color and then kind of move to another color, and you might be able to get 5 or 6 dots off of your paintbrush before you have to go back and dip into your color again to get it to be better and keep going. Now, if I did the demonstration like this all day long, you'd get super bored and this would be super awful. So I'm going to move on from this to something else. There are examples of this attached to the assignment sheet that is in coursework for this assignment. If you go down to the bottom of your coursework assignment and you look at the attachments, there's a Microsoft Word document that I've typed out that goes into a little bit more detail about this assignment. And then embedded in that is this painting, so that if you can print that out or open that up as a separate document on your computer, you've got something to look at. If you go to Paul Cezanne Still Life with Apples online and open up the file, you can find this online, and you can have this on your phone, and you can be refreshing your phone, whatever. But it's kind of nice to have a version of this. I have 4 or 5 or 6 of these printed out in the classroom for you guys to use, and so you can use them. And in fact, for those of you who are in the classroom with me right now, I'm just going to pick up these 3 of them that are right here in front of me that are printed out versions and put them out here on this tabletop so that you guys can pick them up and bring them back to your workspace and use them as a visual reference if you want to. So this morning, I started to work on this piece because this would get us halfway into the process a little bit. This was a piece that was abandoned by a student a couple of years ago. And I thought, you know, this was a really good start on the project, but it really didn't go far enough. So the student had chosen their tetrad and they had got most everything kind of blocked in with color. Some of it was even done with dots. But this morning I was kind of coming in here with my tetrad colors on my palette and starting to intersperse dots, because it's not just enough to make color shapes. You also have to break up those color shapes by interspersing them with other dots in the composition. So we've got some, you know, kind of yellow-orange apples here. And for the most part, that's nice. But around the edges, we're going to find that we want to have these crescent-shaped shadow areas. And again, we want to be kind of consistent because the direction of light is kind of coming in from this direction. And so we have a pool of light in the foreground in front of the apples. We have highlights of light hitting the apples just left of center. And then over on the right of center area of each apple is this crescent shaped shadow, you know, on that kind of backside of the apple. And it's not perfect and it's not the same in every case. And so, you know, what we're kind of tasked with is the idea of, can we play with all of the differences that the artist is kind of playing with. He kind of did a really loose kind of slapdash painting of these apples with really coarse brush strokes, but still there's something very effective about what he did with these coarse brush strokes. Of course, we're coming in here with a different technique, not brush strokes, but we're coming in here with pure color dots and trying to get some kind of optical color mixing effect. And so I'd like us to think of trying to intersperse these dots to be able to get that kind of effect. So we're kind of using this pointillism to be able to intersperse the dots, and then also you know, using optical color mixing to get the effects of blended colors or neutralized colors. And what else? What else was I thinking about here? I can't remember all the stuff I was thinking about, but so I'm kind of coming in here and repainting this with lots more dots and interspersing the dots to kind of break up some of the really large color shapes and reestablish the idea of kind of these blended areas of color, especially in the shadows, especially in the background and in the shadows that are outside of the fruit. But to do that, we have to have faith that when we intersperse the dots, we will be able to get the effects that we're trying to achieve. And so that's what I'm doing, playing with dots here. I'm trying to think of something else to say, because sometimes when you get into the painting portion of this thing, it's so much fun that your verbal parts tend to like shut down or crank off. But I'm kind of trying to paint automatically so that I'm bouncing around in the painting, looking for different areas that need fixing, that need balancing, that need some dots added to them, you know, interspersing the dots in other color areas so that they are kind of able to neutralize colors and make neutral shadows in places where I need the shadows to be more neutral, especially in the background, and especially in the cast shadow areas that where each piece of fruit is casting this lovely little tongue-shaped shadow behind the piece of fruit. I'm going to try to intersperse dots in almost equivalent or equal amounts of my blue-green, my red-orange, my yellow-orange, and violet, so that I've got a good interspersion of dots happening. And some places you're going to want to have majorities of like one color of dots. If you've got a red apple and you're trying to make it red, you're going to have 75% red dots, you know, in that part of the color shape of the red apple to make it red and to make it convincing, like this apple is over on the left-hand lower side. These are, you know, apples that were from the 1890s. This is a 120-year-old apple. So this is before modern apples that have been really bred for this. So these are more heirloom kinds of apples that are just, they have a little bit of variety. They don't all look the same like we would find for apples that are coming from the supermarket today. And so each apple has its own kind of unique character and quality to it, but they all kind of share that general apple shape. This little shadow in the middle of each apple is the place where the stem kind of goes into the stem end of the apple. And so you're going to want to try to preserve and explore what it's like to try to make a little, you know, stem end shadow in that portion of the apple. And sometimes when I'm making dots in an area like this, and I'm thinking about this as a round form, and that some of the shadows and some of the highlights are kind of a curving arc happening across the face of the apple, I might even put my dots in kind of an arc shape or an arc form so that that leads the viewer's eye around the shape a little bit better, so that it reinforces the idea of this being an arc or a rounded spherical form of some kind. So you can see me kind of doing that in some of these places where I'm just running a string of dots like a string of pearls and playing with the idea of curving surfaces, curving reflected light off of a surface, and kind of leading the viewer's eye into places like these little shadows where the stem ends are inside the apples. So I've been painting with the red-orange for a while, and it's getting me to feel like I want to clean off my the back end of the wrong end of my paintbrush and go into the blue-green a bit and play with the blue-green, because I really haven't done any painting with the blue-green. So I'm going to be bringing blue-green into some of these apples, even into the foreground area of the apple, where it's got a lot of light. You have to just have a little teeny little bit of interspersing of other dots just to break up the shape, or actually to create, you know, a shape that leads the viewer's eye around and kind of reinforces the idea of a spherical shape of the apple, which could be fun. But this blue-green, I think, is going to wind up being a lot more in the shadows, like in the background here, behind the two rows of apples, up here in the upper register of the painting. I think we're going to have pretty much equal areas interspersing of red, in my case, red, yellow, orange, blue-green, and the blue-violet. That happens to be what this tetrad is. And so you'd have 25%, you know, of each color interspersed up here, so that with optical color mixing, they would tend to all neutralize each other out, which would tend to make this a fairly medium to medium low key and neutral area, which would tend to recede away from the viewer's eye and open up the compositional space. Whereas this this pool of light in the foreground tends to be like 80% or more of your high key warm value dots. And so that's definitely going to advance towards the viewer's eye. And it really makes in that the push-pull of this thing advancing towards the viewer at the bottom and the back side of the painting, the top end of the painting receding away, tends to actually take the tabletop that we're looking at and it tilts that tabletop like this. So it really makes the bottom edge of the tabletop advance towards the viewer and the top edge of the tabletop recede away in space. So it optically does what I'm doing with my fingers right now, actually making things kind of feel like the tabletop is tipping and opening up the space, which is really a kind of a cool concept when you think about it. Let's see, I'm still doing green. So I've got a whole bunch of violet over here in this corner that I need to break up with a whole bunch of green. We're also going to be looking at what happens when you overlap some of your large dots with another color. Sometimes the dots won't just be dots all by themselves and have a nice round, perfectly formed dot shape. But as you get crowded and as the dots get crowded in here, sometimes it might make sense. Like I've got orange dots in the background and I've got green on my brush. And if I go over the top of a dot with some green and take a bite out of that dot, then it diminishes that orange dot quite a bit. And you've got an interesting kind of shaped thing happening. I'm going to try to find a big orange dot and put a little teeny dot of green right in the middle of it, just to see what happens if I actually make little eyeballs that have a little green middle and a little piece of orange all the way around surrounding the green. Because you can play this kind of a shape game too, and it's kind of a micro approach to shapes and the way the colors mix. But this is kind of fun too. But I'm kind of like 6 hours into this painting already. You guys just have to kind of cover the waterfront, basically. Try to get all of this stuff covered in paint first, and then we can worry about doing kind of special tricks. One of the special tricks, one of the stupid human tricks that I'm doing is trying to find my edges again of some of these pieces of fruit, because I've kind of lost some of the edges. And so I have to kind of come around the outside edge of a piece of fruit with a string of dots that almost looks like a string of pearls, so that your eye will connect the dots and kind of recreate the idea of the outside edge of this piece of fruit. And that is something that we're going to be doing when we do damage control and trying to find the outside edges of our fruit again. Because the outside edges are kind of important. We have to try to find those edges even as we lose the edges in the painting. This is something that painters fight with all the time, trying to maintain their edges as they are losing edges in the application of paint. So this can be kind of an interesting, fun thing to have to deal with in terms of, you lose that black line, and then you have to ask yourself, where is the edge of that piece of fruit and how can I get it back? All right, I've been talking for a while. I'm going to look at the clock. It says 25 after, so that's 25 minutes of hearing me drone on about this. Do you guys have any questions for me in the classroom or online? If you do, you go right ahead and unmute your mic and just blurt them out, because I'm open for questions. I'm not even looking at the screen, so I got my ears open, and then I'm gonna go on to other things here in just a second. I'm gonna pull a few of these green dots into the pool of light down here in the foreground, break up the edges of that. Okay, and I'm going to wash this or wipe this off. It's kind of easier to paint with the wrong end of the paintbrush because I don't need to really wash it off in water very much. I could just use a paper towel and really pull effectively all of the paint off of that end when I'm trying to switch paint colors. So that's pretty important. I'd like to remind you guys to, or ask you please, to clean up really good after yourselves when you get done painting, to go ahead and wash this paint down the sink and to do a good job of it with the scrubbies and the sponges that are there available. So that, and then kind of pile this stuff all back up where all of the lids go so that, you know, I don't have a big mess of paint. Some couple people, you know, just threw their palette full of paint in the sink and walked off and left it. And so I really want us to police ourselves and try to do a good job of getting the paint all cleaned up again before you leave the studio here. For the online people, I want to let you know that I printed out an extra 30 or 40 of these things and they're available in the classroom. So if you can get over here to Coos Bay, to Eden Hall, Eden number 7, there's a stack of these right on the tabletop in the center of the room, and you can help yourself to a couple of these. The printouts are on a cardstock, so it stays a lot flatter. It doesn't tend to curl up quite as much as painting on computer paper does. And it's kind of nice to have more rigid or you know, just stronger support for your painting to happen on. But this kind of painting and this kind of detail and stuff will take a long time. You know, I want you to know that you're going to be budgeting and spending about you know, 6 or 8 hours painting this thing. But it does become something that is suitable for framing. It does become a really wonderful painting that you can keep as, you know, an artifact of this class and something that you can hang in your home, just like in a $10 Walmart frame or something. And there really are nice paintings. So it's worth putting the time in on this. We can call this, we can title this thing an homage to Cezanne. And homage is a French word that's based on the word homage, you know, in English. And, you know, so you're paying respect, you're paying, you're doing an homage to somebody else by kind of making a piece of artwork that's based on their artwork. And so that you're kind of showing that, you know, you're a invested student who's learning something from the artwork of somebody from before, but you're also building on it and putting your own kind of personal touches into it to transform and make it your own at the same time, which is a legit way of working in the art world. And we have a rich tradition of that in Western art going back a long time. So that's how artists and designers learn, is by learning from the masters and from the folks that came before them. And so we play that game too. Okay, I'm gonna call it a day for the online presentation and the recording, because you guys don't like it when I drone on anyway, and neither do I. I'm gonna change cameras again to bring us all back together in the studio before we say goodbye. So changing the camera view to the classroom, and jumping up and jumping over here so that everybody can see each other. We're gonna just see if anybody has any questions or comments online or in the classroom. Because if I sit here, I can look at, I got eyes in the back of my head now, and I can see the people behind me. And that's so cool. And I can see everybody who's online too. All right, have a good weekend. Go get some sunshine, go out and get lost in the sunshine. The stack of extra templates, blank templates, is right here in the classroom if you can make it over here to get a printout if you want one. And otherwise, watch the Super Bowl or the Super Bowl commercials on Sunday, and we'll talk about Super Bowl advertising on Monday's class. So I'm going to end it for now. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.